check. Okay. All right, we got a lot of excited people here. You know, you talk about deer and hunting, and everyone gets excited, but that's good. That's why we're here. So we're back live again. This is the All-Ban Center for Education, Wildlife, and Research. This is a management meeting we have put on in conjunction with the MUCC. We just heard from Anna Minnerling and had some good information about how to start a co-op. We had some great commentary from Dan Smolinski with Green Acres, Irv from QDMA, John from All-Ban talking about a co-op in Missouri. What a great boiler template there. I think, Mike, we need to go down there and do a little documentary about that.
I want to go hunting with them. I'm sure you do. You just sent the invite.
So just a quick reminder, my name is Ron Siegel. I'm the general manager of All-Ban, and we're, again, doing this wildlife management meeting to start the Robs Creek Deer Cooperative. And a reminder, everybody here has entered into a drawing for a beautiful Remington rifle, as well as anybody, once we post our videos, if you comment, you will get entered for the drawing on November 1st. And we would really appreciate it if you could like our page, share our videos. We had a great video about, we got out of the forest. We did a whole video on oak wilt, which got a ton of likes and views, and that was great. So real quick, I'm going to talk about ACE-WR, and then I'm going to hand it over to Irv from QDMA. He's going to do a little talk real quick, and then we're going to do some more Q&A, and then we'll wrap it up. So All-Ban is an entity we formed not too long ago, again, to take this amazing technology with fiber optics and wireless and video and solar power, everything that we've done over the last decade. We're taking that and we're looking at our community and we're saying, what else can we do? And there's a lot of things we can do. And our vision essentially is to enhance wildlife, habitat, agriculture, forestry, and anything else in society that can be boosted with broadband. And I will tell you right now, I can find a use for broadband to help anything in our society, in any government sector, in any urban, rural environment, whatever you want to do. So we're leveraging this technology and we're trying to do more. And what we're trying to do in this case is blend the technology, facilitate interaction. We've heard from a lot of people. There's a lot of silo effect going on. There's a lot of diseducation. I don't even know if that's a word, but we want people to have the right information. We want people to work together. There's a trend now. In the last decade, I'm seeing more and more camps wanting to work together, and Anna, talked about that a little bit, how important that is. So that's why we're here, and that's what we're trying to do, is facilitate. What can you do with this technology, whether it's monitoring deer, monitoring a forest? There's so many different things we can do. Working with Mike Adams here on documentaries. We're going to start doing documentaries on oak wilt and anything we can to push this thing forward. So we look at internet as an opportunity service, and we look at society as an opportunity center. So what we're trying to do here is look at how we can leverage workforce development, education, research and development, community engagement, economic development, public-private partnerships, or P3. How can we investigate, create, innovate, collaborate to bring knowledge to the forefront and get more people talking and working together to make change? So I think this co-op idea is great, because nothing against the DNR, nothing against MDAR, nothing against any of these government agencies, but there's so many of them, and there's this silo effect going on, which can be very frustrating for people. So what an amazing concept of getting everybody together to manage their land and to work together to prove a point, to force a change. And eventually I think we can all get on the same page. So we're using cutting-edge technology to do research, to build research platforms, to provide infrastructure, to form co-ops. There's so many things we can do. I can go on and on for hours with the different technologies, and I don't want to go on too long, but in this case, we're talking about community engagement. And one of the things we look at is a cooperative membership. We are a co-op. What an amazing idea to have a telephone co-op help other co-ops start and work together. And we've already built this camaraderie, we've already built this trust in the community. And that's what we're trying to do, is bring together people with the technology to educate, to do functions like this. And again, I want to focus on the wildlife end here. So what are we talking about here? Wildlife management, habitat improvement, wildlife disease prevention. John and I have had a nice few talks about ticks lately. I think ticks are a very, very, very underrated problem that we're going to see. I mean, everyone around here, is it just me, or is it
No,
every spring they get worse and worse and worse? Well, what are those things carrying? You know, I know there's Lyme disease, but I mean, I think there's a lot of other ones, right? So that's just one of the things. We have chronic wasting disease. Everyone keeps talking about TB. What about chronic wasting disease? I mean, that's huge. Oak wilt, spruce bud. There's so much going on right now in your backyard that needs attention. You know, this is more than hunting. This is protecting your habitat, feeding the deer, your trophy bucks that you want to harvest every year, the does. I mean, there's so much more to it, and we could spend weeks talking about it. So, again, facilitating that information, bringing the experts to the table. You know, we got Mike here, we got John here. I mean, he's had years and years of experience. We got Dan here representing ag. We got Irv here, we got Clay here. I mean, Todd, you're here. I mean, these are a lot of people with big camps. And I'm seeing much more collaboration and cooperation. And, you know, I've met with Mississippi State. I've met with Texas A&M. We've talked to MSU. We're working with DNR. We're talking to MDARD. Anybody that can come here, we have a test bed here. Okay, we have the most robust, technologically advanced research test bed here. And it's just right for the picking. And we're trying to bring these people here to say, let's do testing. I have my equipment lined up outside for a reason. If you call me up tomorrow and said, hey, I have oak wilt, and I'm working with the Forest Conservation Group, we can come out with our plow. Yes, normally I use it for plowing fiber, but guess what? If you want me to come out to cut up a root system, I can do that. We have equipment here in your backyard to help with that. And one of the reasons we formed this 501c3 is we're starting to push now for donations. You can donate to the All-Band Center, and we're going to start accumulating money for grants, for research. So maybe we can come out and do that root system work for you where it's not, you're not paying for it. So I got to put a little plug in here, is we are a 501c3, we are IRS approved. If you want to donate to a 501c3 to start working on something in your backyard, I urge you to consider us and donate as we're ramping up that process. Forest management, let's not forget forest management, that's a huge part of it. We've talked about data collection. How do you collect data when there's no broadband? How do you collect data when there's no internet? Are you guys wanting to do these browse surveys by running around the field? Well, what if you never had to leave camp? What if you didn't have to put that pressure on that ecosystem? What if you could monitor this stuff remotely, record in the cloud, do your buck-doe ratio counting, watch time-lapse of your undergrowth coming up? I mean, there's so many cool things that we can do. I mean, and this is the interesting part. When I go and talk to Mississippi State or I go to talk to MSU, people kind of look at me like, wait, you're doing what now? Like, why, you're a telephone co-op, why are you here? And I'm like, no, I'm here for ACE-WR. I'm here to tell you that if you ever did research out in the field and you wished you had broadband or you wished you had advanced technology you can monitor, I can do that for you. I'm looking at Dan right now. John mentioned this Microsoft project we're working on with TV Whitespace. We just rolled this out last week, and we have some pilot customers up right now. We are using TV channels to deliver broadband right now. What an amazing idea, okay? And what you can go 8 miles with this stuff. And you know, a lot of people that are using it right now is the ag industry. They're blanketing. We're talking about thousands of acres blanketing with technology to monitor everything from moisture to anything coming onto the land for security. I mean, the list goes on and on. So, that's what we're really trying to focus on now is advancing research, advancing collaboration. And, here's some more examples. I'm sorry, my PowerPoint that I fixed earlier got all messed up, so this is my old one. But, property management club services, Dan happens to do that. We partner with Green Acres. We have equipment ourselves. We can help with that. We can help monitor that. Video monitoring, experimenting with new technologies, inventions. One of the professors I talked to, he's like, how cool, he's like, one of the things I've always wanted to do for chronic wasting disease is apparently when an animal has chronic wasting disease, they have high temperature like the flu. So what if you had a feeder, and what if you had a laser? You know how little infants, you can take the temperature now without the old school way, you can just pull the trigger and boom, you have your temperature. Why not do that with a deer? You can start monitoring a deer that has a higher temperature and maybe start identifying chronic wasting disease. There's a professor at Texas A&M that was talking about doing that. We've talked about monitoring for animals with TB. Maybe if they're eating at a sensor, okay, and all of a sudden that saliva thinks that, oh, we have a TB positive, something sprays that deer, and all of a sudden you have this fluorescent dye on the deer where you can monitor a deer that has TB and look at their movement and stuff like that. Those are just examples. You know, fencing, vaccination studies, real-time data analysis, telecheck. You know, this thing that Michigan has been against, we're very proactive with in trying to endorse and say, what can we do with the telecheck system? Necropsy programs. Mike and I did several necropsies at Turtle Lake, which was broadcast live. What an amazing experience that was. And then drones. What an amazing thing that's come up in our society is the use of drones and what you can do with those. These are all examples of what we're talking about. So again, with the two big things we're looking at right now is an idea of a web portal where you have membership and you can start looking at data. You can start doing your own telechecks. You can look for educational content that's endorsed by experts. Social action, I call it the Facebook for hunters, things like that. Sponsorships with corporations, you know, there's a lot of corporations out there that would love to get involved with all this. And again, the telecheck, and then the multimedia aspect of it. Working with Mike to do documentaries, educational content, and analysis that way. So again, we're big on education and training, and I'm going to try to wrap this up a little bit. So again, this was my old slide, but what I want you guys to get away with this, and I'm going to hand it over to Irv so we can talk a little bit more about deer, is coming to us, expressing interest, joining the co-op, whether it's joining this one or possibly looking at your own. But I urge everybody to talk to their neighbors, express interest in what we're trying to do, sign up, get your name on there, and we're going to be contacting you with great things to come with our web portal and how we're trying to bring everything together. You know, and consider All-Band as a one-stop shop for natural resource, for education, for research, for technology. We want to help you. You know, we're going to be pushing for donations. We're going to be pushing for new services that we can do out here in the field, and we really want to see things improve out here. So I'm going to wrap up now. Irv, you want to come up and say a few words, and then we'll do Q&A? Okay.
Ron, can you make sure that my copy is turned on?
If I might mention between speakers here, that if you are interested in joining the co-op, if you're not currently a member, to just let me know and I will make sure that we reach back out to you, okay?
Yeah, and one more second. The big thing I should have said to begin with is remember that we are an internet provider, okay? There's still a lot of camp owners and there's still a lot of people around here that don't have our service, believe it or not, and we've tried to reach them. The best thing for us as a not-for-profit co-op is word of mouth. You know, we get a lot of seasonal people here. It's hard to track them down. Honestly, the best thing that has worked for us is actually going onto the camps, knocking on the door, trying not to do it when people have their guns loaded more than they usually do, putting up gate flyers. You know, we have room for growth. We're trying to explore wireless technologies now that actually work in this environment. But as landowners around here, please express that we're here. You know, we're trying to ramp up our marketing, but it's huge for us to keep growing our telephone co-op. And with that, when you get that pipe on property, I mean, it's amazing to see what's happened over the years. You know, going from the early days when John started the co-op to getting threats. You know, if you're plowing cable around hunting season, you're going to bullet hole. You know, I mean, people are very emotional about hunting properties, but we're starting to see a generational shift where more and more people want. I got a call from a guy yesterday that's had our phone service for years. I just almost fell off my chair when he said he finally wants internet. You know why he wants internet? Because the young guys want to spend more time up here. They want to be able to telework. And when more people are up here teleworking, they're putting more economic development into the community. Okay, they can stay longer. They can work remotely. Oh, and by the way, I have guys with Wi-Fi and hunting blinds. I have guys with cameras, and I have guys with gates. You know, I have guys watching their TV from downstate up here because we have one of the biggest pipes around, 100 meg. I mean, 100 meg to a rural camp up here, that's pretty amazing. And people underestimate the value that internet brings. It's more than just surfing the internet. It's all these different things. So please spread the word. The more co-op members we can get, the better off we are for us. So, sorry. It's all you.
No problem.
All right.
I'll introduce myself. My name is Irvin Tim. I'm the president of Northeast Michigan Quality Deer Management Association. We've been in the organization for like 14 years. We had a group of guys got together down in Northeastern Michigan, which is southeastern part of Alpena County. And with the TB we had in the area, we said, well, let's try to do something to help our deer population and maybe help all our hunters out. So we joined up with Quality Deer Management Association. And how unknowledgeable I was about deer. I'm not no biologist or anything. I grew up on a farm, kind of like Danny's background, dirt under our fingernails. So, but I enjoy deer hunting. So I've learned so much over the years from presentations like this, going to the cropsies out at Turtle Lake and other seminars like Anna put on and stuff, and just talking to people. So I'm just going to give a little rundown here on a few things. I could talk all day, but I'm going to talk the importance of doe harvesting. That is the big thing up here. Most people have a tendency, and I want to shoot a doe and kill him next year's buck. So we did a little check around this area a couple years ago when we called in and made contact with certain camps, and they said, well, we don't shoot any does because neighbors shooting them all. Go to the neighbors, we don't shoot any does because that neighbor's shooting them all. When the guys came up from downstate, didn't see any deer or wanted something, they stuck their rifles in, and so all these shots, they figured were does being shot. So we found out in 3 camps, harvested 2 does. So that kind of blew that out of the water, but everybody's saying, oh, the deer was shot off. So I'm going to tell you a little thing about deer numbers. Michigan, in this part of the state, we get about a 30% recruitment on our fawns in traditional deer camps. This is not managed deer camps. And somebody says, what do you mean 30%? That's the number of fawns that are going to be alive this coming spring that were born this spring. So they're going to be a year old. You got predation, you got everything, hunters shoot them, born the wrong time of the year. And why do we have 30%? And why do we have 25 does and only 5 bucks in traditional hands-off deer management? Is because people are not harvesting what you call the old alpha doe, who 80% of the time will have 2 doe fawns. Okay, she's the boss, she controls, she gets the best food. Your younger deer, which are 3.5 years younger, get the worst habitat, so their fawns are suffering. And this is what happens when you have this rut of 3 periods too. Anna talked about that. When you've got an overabundance of does and not enough bucks, your rut goes out into 3 stages. So you only get a 30% recruitment and you're getting like 5 bucks out of those. So that's not a very good ratio, is it? You know, you say, well, gee, I got all these does and I'm leaving them go, I should be getting more bucks. Well, this is what plays into it, because the older doe is going to have more doe fawns. She's going to have the best food, so her fawns are more likely to survive. You get a tough winter, she'll even drive her own fawns out. So if we drop that down, took these alpha does out, and then say a chunk of property, could be a square mile or 2 square miles, you want to get 50 does on this property, okay. They're all getting more food. The does are going to all have their fawns at the same time, so you're not going to have that 3-stage rut. The deer are going to be healthier, and your ratio with 3.5 and under younger does, you're going to get 20 bucks and 20 doe fawns. So, why are we feeding the extra 50 deer? More is not better. It just makes common sense. You got more food for these lesser deer, there's more food available, fawns are dropped on the ground at the right time, they're going to be healthier, they have a better chance of them living. Somebody says, well, how many deer do I have on my property? Well, I call it the 5 p.m. count. Everybody in there blind at 5 p.m. on opening day, doesn't text, doesn't phone somebody, write it down. How many deer are out in front of them at that time? Write down does, fawns, bucks. Okay, and that night at camp and everybody's sitting around eating, you add them all up, and that is a pretty good indicator of how many deer are on your property. Versus, you can do trail cameras and other stuff too, but that is a good count for the first day of deer season. Kind of a fun thing too, you know. A friend of mine had some guys do it out in Ferry Road, which would be southwest of Hillman, and they came in on the opening day at 5 o'clock count on 300 some acres. They see 89 deer. And they were saying they had like 20 to 35 deer on their property. So most people don't have a clue what's on their property. And then another thing about food, Danny can explain this, but a doe, when it's mature deer, doe buck, anything, eats 5 to 7 pounds of food daily. That mounts up to quite a bit of food. Through the summer they got the green stuff, but in the winter they're basically living on browse unless you have some food planted that they can dig down through the snow to get, but otherwise they're eating browse. So if you've got 5 to 7 pounds of food eaten daily and you got this gigantic herd, your woods is going to get depleted of food in a hurry. And another thing people don't do is get soil samples. They say, well, Grandpa's been putting on triple 19 for the last 20 years. Do you do a soil sample? No, we grow rye, we use triple 19. Your ground might be phosphorus poison by now. What that means is your plants are not absorbing the nutrition from what is supposed to get out of the fertilizer. So soil samples are very, very important this year because we have a lot of sand around here. Heavy clay ground is not so important, but in sandier ground, soil samples and lime is so much cheaper than fertilizer. And another thing I always hear people talk about is cull bucks. I had to shoot that spike horn because it's a cull buck. This cull buck generally is a product right here. His mother got pushed away from the best food. He was born late, so the first year he's a cull buck. Okay? I tell people when I started high school, I was 5'2", 90 pounds. I should have been eliminated, right? Graduated 6 foot 175. Now I'm not no cull buck.
Just a buck.
People said, never heard of that one before. I said, well, when I talk about deer, you just kind of say, well, you don't know what he's talking about. But when I say that, you know what? I was that way. I was just a little guy, a freshman. I ended up being, when I was a senior, I was a starting tackle on football. When I was a freshman, I was on the bench. So you cannot judge deer till he's probably 4.5 years old. Because those spike horns are byproducts of this here environment. You'll get 4-pointers, 6-pointers, and if you got really good genetics and nutrition, you even get some 1.5-year-old 8-pointers. And I got that buck out there explained to people. He was a 7-pointer at 1.5 years. He's still a 7-pointer at 4.5. That I consider a cull buck out there. When I looked at him at 1.5 years, I said, boy, that's a great buck to let go. But you couldn't make that determination, and that's what he looked like at 4.5. And then for another thing we do around here is we have the late doe season. I have a skull there from a doe to show the difference in the head structure between a doe and a buck after he loses his horns. Because everybody says, I let these bucks go muzzle load and I want to shoot a doe for some meat. I got a spike horn that lost its horn to a 4-pointer. Pair of binoculars, and was the result of a lot of that. So I just kind of hit some of these things. I can talk more detail on a lot of this stuff, so I just wanted to open people's eyes about the importance of what bringing doe numbers down to your habitat, to your food sources, and like John was saying, what he's got going in his place, he's seen tremendous results because he keeps a check on his deer herd. And another thing, when you shoot, and you got the nutrition and the food there, you're going to get more deer. Just like the farmlands right now are overabundance of deer because that's where the food is. So much of the woods has been totally deprived of overbrowsing because of the days of big, gigantic carrot piles. Right down here on the Hubbard Lake Trail, back in the 80s, I worked on some camps. They hauled the carrots in by the trainload, put a pup behind it. By noon, there was 250 deer standing on that pile. Biggest buck was like that, maybe weighed 85 pounds. After that stuff was all ate up in February, the deer stayed there and chewed everything off. So that was the byproduct of the great feeding program we had. So we've got wiser and smarter, and hopefully these co-ops get together and share their information. And like Anna said, I had people I didn't even know that lived hunted next door to me. Once I got involved in QDMA, they invite me over to their camp for a beer and a burger or whatever. We've met new people. They come over, you get invited to their camp during their work bees. It's an opening up of a new friendship. And like, Ron was saying, somebody went on a hunting trip with his neighbor that they never knew before. So.
That was Anna.
That was Anna? Okay. But I mean, it's just just a little common sense things just to try. I mean, church in Hubbard Lake, be free of charge. He did a study on buck dispersal, and he's got an article, and it's called Vanish, because people wonder what happens to these bucks on the 1st of November. So it's Dr. Andrew Little. He'll be speaking at 1 o'clock on the 23rd of St. Paul Lutheran Church in Hubbard Lake, and that's free of charge. So, and I'll be there, and there'll be other people there. So I'd like to thank you for inviting me out, and if you got any questions.
My question, please.
Yes.
If someone is interested in doing a soil sample, where would they send that to? Or
You
who
can
would
do
they-
it with your local county extension agency.
Okay.
I think Miller Feeds offers that, right, Dan?
Yeah, and I've got some good contacts. Sometimes those county extensions take too long.
Too long?
Where we send ours, I get results back, either email back to you or within a week you have it back.
Okay. I got a place in Mississippi. I sent
We
one.
go, yeah, they change their names now,
Yeah.
but they're in Indiana or, but they're quick.
John
Okay.
had somebody come out and pull it.
Yeah, we had a company, chemical company, come out and pull ours, and
Okay.
they did an excellent job, and just exactly what you said. I said, man, these fields must need lime. No, we had plenty of lime. Everything that we guessed that we thought we had,
Yeah.
we were wrong.
Yeah.
And then you show them to Dan, and he can say, oh, this is what you need. You can actually throw money away for
Oh, yeah.
fertilizer.
Because everybody, I mean, Dan runs a source of business of fertilizers and seeds and other stuff. So does my brother, and I'm there, and these guys come in and they load up the truck. And I say to them, do you have a soil sample? No, we've been using 1919 and rye for 35 years. And I says, and you never took a soil sample. So you don't know if you're getting the true benefit of your fertilizer, if you can actually plant something else and get organic material. Buckwheat is an excellent soil builder. There's other stuff out there. It doesn't make any sense to be doing what you did 30 years ago, you know. Because things change, the woods change, everything. I mean, you look at the environment's changed, the trees are oak wilt and pine needles and autumn olives and you name it. So you gotta stay up on everything. So,
One of the biggest challenges we have right now is we had a terrible fawn crop, just terrible. We lost fawns left and right, and now we're down to virtually none.
you think it was bear or coyotes or?
Well, I think it's a lot coyote and bobcats, and then. But anyways, the problem that we have is that we've got so many food plots on our property that we pull these deer in, and then when our question is kind of a political thing, when do we harvest those does? Because if we harvest the does in rifle season, the doe harvest really does interfere with the buck harvest because the gun's going off. Last year we shot 23 does on 640 acres, and we didn't put a dent
No.
in the
If you-
population.
If you got the food source, you actually had more deer come in and you're, like I
Right.
say, with this scenario, wouldn't that be a neat scenario to have 20 new bucks every year?
Right.
But if you don't keep that balance, it swings back the other way so quick.
Terribly quick. And
Yeah.
then the other problem is that if you do an aerial survey of this area, because this now with Google Earth, I can tell you legally how many acres of food plots there
Yeah.
are per square mile,
Yeah.
and I can tell you that in a matter of an hour.
Really?
Okay. And yeah, because you can look at everything from Google Earth and you can see how many.
You
and
can pull it right up and check where a guy's blind is.
So our questions are, well, the problem that we have is that when do you harvest the does? Do you harvest them in October in bow season, some in November, some in December?
Okay, rule of thumb, if you got a large amount of does, you want to get them does out as soon as possible because that's going to provide more food for your young bucks and your other bucks for coming into the winter. They'll be in better shape. So if you leave them does to the late doe season, you fed them for 2 months and you're going to take them out. I know what you got to do is isolate an area where a food plot maybe or something where you got a high concentration of does in your killing plots. You would save them for your bucks because you can get isolation plots and you can get destination plots. The big fields is where your does are going to go to. Your bucks are going to go more to your isolation plots. So I would say if you got a nutrition problem and you overdose, you take them out early because that's going to provide.
Okay, when you say early, what do you mean?
Well, bow season, you know, and if you guys want somebody to take some out even early doe season, but concentrate on bow season on taking does, you know. And then the first couple of days of rifle season, you really don't want to shoot does. You can take them does after Thanksgiving or something like that. Cause, you start shooting does first day of rifle season, all your mature bucks are gonna be in the next 40. So,
Getting shots by somebody else.
yeah, and another thing about your fawn, losing lots of fawns, do you have a sanctuary bedding area, of maybe, some switchgrass planted where they can hide in, or did some hinge cutting? There's ways to improve your habitat to give the fawns more cover to hide from predators.
Well, we've got phenomenal habitat.
Okay.
The habitat, and we're improving it. We've got a habitat program that we cut every year. We've got
Okay.
a logger in there
Yeah.
every year cut.
Now, do you leave the tops?
We do a mixture depending upon what
Very
we're
good.
cutting.
Yeah.
Okay? And we have found by scarifying the ground that we get phenomenal regeneration, better than mechanical regeneration. We can
Okay.
actually harvest and get better regeneration than if we went out there and mechanically planted the trees.
Okay.
Okay, and that's free.
Now, is your regrowth making it through the first year, or is it all getting chewed off?
No, it's making it.
Okay.
It just depends upon what it is. You know, there's
Okay.
certain things. Popples have a hard time making it
Yeah,
in my
that's
neighborhood.
preferred food.
Right, and then the maples, if you cut enough maples, they will stump sprout. And
Yeah.
so no one wants to cut oak around here.
Yeah.
But they don't realize that many of these oaks, the lifespan of them is very short.
And they're not producing anything.
And they're not
for you.
producing acorns anyways, but if you cut them, they'll stump sprout.
Yeah.
But,
Would you-
and then there's nothing wrong with fencing in an area, even a small area, an acre. You can fence that in and keep the deer out after you log, and then take that fence down and put it up in another area.
Well, talking about fences, John, I got to talk with Russ Mason, and we were talking about Durkee Lake switches.
I know where Durkee Lakes is.
They got 6,500 acres, and they did a logging program. In order to get regrowth, they put a 10-foot high fence all around it.
Yeah, and look at the regrowth they have.
And I says to Russ, I said, maybe they should buy some shelves besides fences. You
They
know,
should buy some what?
shelves for their guns. So,
Oh,
Yeah. Start
because your
shooting some
management
does.
is right here, you know, and most people are afraid to shoot does. Now, I had a scenario in my house, my wife would tell you, I had a doe that had a screwed up jaw. Well, we called her Scarface. So she stayed around there like 4 or 5 years. The year she disappeared, prior to that, there'd be like 3 fawns on my property. The year she disappeared, she was the boss, I had 9 fawns the next year. So, that's where it plays in here. If you got that old alpha doe, she is keeping young does that are having buck fawns off the best area. So that's where that, I mean, I learned it firsthand. Once she disappeared, I just, like somebody opened a gate up, I had all these does with fawns. I was, wow, where did I get all the fawns from? Well, after I heard some seminars from Dr. Kroll and other people, it made sense, but I had to learn firsthand.
Mike, he suggested that we take the does out in bow season and
not feed them all through the season?
take them out during
Well,
bow
what happens-
season and then after Thanksgiving.
What happened, Mike, is if you take some in bow season or even a youth hunt, I would recommend you target your youth to, if they want to shoot a buck, fine, but I would target youth for, use them for removal of does. Because that doe will be eaten from September, October to November,
Right.
and that doe is taking food away from your young
Food
bucks and your mature bucks that are in February. You guys have been at the Cropsies.
Yep.
And then one year they took a buck there and he was living on his bone marrow on 1st of February.
Right.
Because of that's before the ratio got right. He ran himself literally to death. Because people say I'm not getting any 3.5, 4.5-year-old bucks, and I'm letting them go. Well, he's run himself into the dirt, and by February, March he dies. So that's why they don't make it. The last couple winters have been pretty mild. So this year people are telling me about bucks that's unreal for Northeast Michigan. You guys got pictures of them. Yes.
how do you have, a lot of our guys will not harvest to go. How do you have incentives, in John, you may have an answer to this,
Okay.
or anybody in the room actually, how do you incentivize your guys? You try to educate them, you try to do all this stuff, and, you know, there's a flag, there's apple pie motherhood draped around
Yeah.
the doe, and they just will not do it.
Well,
And so I've just gone out and had the, but how do you try to incentivize these guys or girls to
yeah. Well,
participate in this?
you gotta, I mean, now this, you've digested this, you gotta explain that to them,
Yeah,
and then you put a $500 price on that big doe.
Big doe
Everybody-
contest?
make it a camp
Yeah.
rule. Everybody's gonna put in $50, depending on how many members you got. We're gonna put it in the pot. Who gets the oldest doe and the heaviest, do a little fun thing, make it, maybe guys would get 2 5-year-olds or something, but I got jawbones and you can tell how to age them, but maybe the heaviest doe. And that gives them incentive. You make the pot big enough,
Yeah,
they're gonna get involved. I mean,
That's a great idea.
you know,
that's a great idea.
and you say, okay, everybody on Thanksgiving Day, we're all gonna harvest does, and the guy that gets the heaviest one is gonna win the pot, okay? And now when they say, which one do I shoot? It's the one with the long nose, the big ears, and the brisket sticking out, suede belly, hanging down, suede back. There's charts out there, you can go online, get these charts, and it'll tell you what doe. Another one to shoot is the doe with 2 fawns. Because if she's got a buck fawn and a doe fawn, she's chasing that buck fawn out anyway, right? Okay, you want that buck fawn that you fed, is nice and healthy, had your food plots, had your nutrition from the woods that you've done harvesting and cuttings. She's gonna kick his butt out, you're gonna go over to the neighbors, and that's gonna be a good, healthy young fawn. You want him to stay in your property, so you see a doe with 2 fawns, you put her in a freezer.
You know, there's an Amish colony over here in Fairview, and I can make a phone call and I can get 100 does killed.
Yeah, we got
One
Amish
phone
on
call.
snake too.
One phone call. He would say, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do with these does. Call Melvin Byler.
That's
Call
no
Paul
excuse.
Yoder.
There's families
And
that'll
they'll
take
come out, and they're very ethical hunters. They
Yeah.
bring binoculars. They know the difference between a 1.5-year-old fawn, a 1.5-year-old buck, and a 4.5-year-old.
Yeah.
I don't shoot any does at my property from the standpoint I'm not here. But when I get back, I have I call Melvin Byler and his family, and they come out and they've shot 4, 5, 6 does in one afternoon. And
They come with the permits to do so?
they come with the permits, they come with their own lunch, you haven't got to worry about beer cans, you haven't got to worry about cigarettes, you don't have to worry about them driving all over your property.
Here's a rule of thumb too. You see it in the woods and you look between the legs and it's a nice little square, that's a young deer. Okay, it's stretched out to a rectangle, put her in the freezer. Okay, because and a lot of times too, the guys are gonna harvest their does in December, and the first one that walks out is the button buck. They shoot that, and they say, oh dang, I screwed up. So then and go shoot another doe. The little fawn doe has, now they know that's small enough, we can't shoot that. The next one walks out is this guy right here. That's the second dumbest deer in the woods. He's lost his horns. I hear more people say, dang it, I shot that, and the pedestal there, and I didn't want to, I let him go all year. That's where I got that doe head out there that I did a European mount on, so you can tell the difference. It's got a nice round top. That little buck's gonna have a flat head. That spike horn out there, if you look at that on the table, it's got a flat head. That doe's gonna have a round head. It's got a long nose, brisket sticks out. Buck's gonna be heavier in the chest.
You know, in Missouri, the other thing, I hate to keep referring back to that, but Michigan could learn a lot.
Oh, we can learn a lot from a lot of people.
And one of the things we do down there now is that the state has now pays the meat processors. So if you shoot a doe down there and you don't want the meat, you're
Yeah.
just trying to manage.
Yeah,
You take, like us, I can't bring all that meat home. So you take it into the processor, the state pays the processor to process the meat, and then they give it to the elderly and the less fortunate. And that way, that's how they manage, because there's a lot of guys down there in Missouri that don't have Missouri license plates. They come in from Maryland, Minnesota, Michigan. You can't believe, I think Michigan, half the people down there are from Michigan.
Missouri or Kansas. And I got a friend who went to Kansas, and he said you see 3 8-pointers chasing one doe. And Kansas doesn't even have antler restrictions. It's just that the state of Kansas is bought into managing their deer, just like North Dakota, South Dakota is bought into pheasants. Kansas is bought into deer. And the amount of money leaving this state, you know, and the state's always saying they're broke.
It's huge.
If we would put a product out here, I mean, you guys seen what we're producing in Northeast Michigan. We put that product out here, they'd be coming in a droves into Michigan. I mean, we got more federal and state land than any state in the nation. And I'm seeing bucks brought into local buck pools right now that'll be taken off state land that'll blow you away. I mean, somebody says, why? That's the byproduct right here. when that doe kicks out her little buck fawn, he goes into state land, finds himself a habitat, and he lives there for 5 years. So, there's a lot to all this. I mean, it just don't happen overnight.
No, but in 7 years, you can take property values. In Missouri, we went from going for about $1,200 to $1,500 an acre to now you can't touch land for $4,000 an acre.
Yeah.
And the farmer down there realizes that it might not be a good year for farming, but it's always a good year for deer hunting.
Well, Michigan, even camps up here that have got really good food plots and into QDMA, or you don't have to be a member of QDMA to practice this. Don't let me tell you that you gotta be a QDMA member. You manage your own land. You're getting 25% more for their property if they got food plots and a deer management program. Because I know a guy who called a camp west of Hillman and said, I'd like to become a member. It was, like 8,000 acres or something, or maybe not that much. And the guy says, what management program do you have? What do you mean? You pass up 8-pointers or 6-pointers? Oh no, we should. He says, well, I don't want to be a member of that camp. So the mindset has changed.
Well, I face the same, look at it right here, live. See, this is what technology can do, guys.
Yeah.
I did not plan those turkeys.
Oh, sure you didn't.
I got a guy out there off screen that let the turkeys.
I know how you are, Ryan.
And you see,
Okay, come on,
You're out there pushing them. You're
Cue
going.
the turkeys.
let me use this as an example right here. So we've been preaching all about doing a proper count with technology. Now I know a lot of people are frustrated when you say DNR. They get very defensive. But what they don't realize is that there's more research going on at the DNR than there is law enforcement. And they're two entirely different entities. The DNR research biologists, if we had,
They're
for
first rate.
example,
They're first rate.
if we had 1,000 cameras across Northeastern Michigan,
Well, yeah,
which all band could set up 1,000 cameras in less time than when we've been sitting here. We can put towers up, we can put cameras up, they're wireless, and then we could say, listen guys, look right here, we've got 15 deer out in our field, and there's not a buck out there. And you could do it at 5 o'clock on November 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, forever. And that's what research can do, and the technology is here. It's not if we had this. It's not when we get this.
it's here.
It's here now. But the problem is that when you say we're going to do this research project with, and then you say those 3 little magic words, people say, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Now in Missouri, when they go down there, we have a university. And they say, well, of course, because they don't see the university as a threat. Okay, they don't see it as something wrong. And the problem is that this is what it's going to take to make a change in this area. There's a lot of people in the DNR who believe in supplemental feeding in areas that they're trying to keep the deer away from farms. But you can't convince anybody unless you have the research. And once you get the data and once you show the people, because this area typically, it has gone down in value price-wise. The acreage, their investment here has gone down.
Well, they've said in statistics, I found out in the last 10 years, our doe harvest has declined every year in the last 10 years in Northeast Michigan.
Right.
Our DNR, I'm not gonna,
No, don't DNR bash, because there's two sides to the DNR.
Right, because Anna will tell you that we had our NRC commission got influenced enough that they took the antler restrictions off the combo license in this area. I figure that is a great step backwards in trying to combat.
Huge step backwards.
Trying to combat TB. If you want to combat TB, try doing some of this stuff. What have you got to lose? I did a presentation to a bunch of people in Elkona. They were non-hunters. They're the easiest people to talk to because they haven't been influenced or from the old way. And there was 50 people each day that they were doing a color tour, and I was up at, what's the name of the taxidermist in Hubbard Lake? Deepwoods. And I kind of explained some of this stuff to them, and they says, we've never heard that way. So one woman said, my doe keeps eating my flowers, what should I do? I said, you put her in the freezer. And she says, pretty simple to solve that, ain't it? But you got common sense. So, I mean, groups like this talking, and, I mean, that's, you talk about TV, you talk about bears, you talk about food plots, and you talk, I mean, we got Dan who farms a large amount of land, and he'll tell you the problems we're having with deer. We used to drive to Flynn Valley, and I grew up on farmland to hunt deer. And now, the brother was combining his wheat field, and there was an 8-acre bean field, and it was 50 deer to one spike horn. The neighbor shoots 2 bucks here. Not shoot a doe. And I'm telling this neighbor now, if chronic wasting disease sets in, you won't have to worry about shooting 2 8-pointers. They're gonna be gone. They're gonna wipe them out. So, you think TB's bad? Anna can tell you what happened down in the Lansing area. I mean, it took 2,500 deer out, 3,000 deer out, didn't they?
Yeah, but there's still plenty of deer.
Yeah, but they're right back. I mean, my brother lives in the Haslett area. He says they heard shooting all summer long, but they've all moved in. That's because of
We created a,
this scenario right here, the deer overabundance, and they go to new territory, so. Thank you. Any more questions?
Thank you. Well, Anna's got a hard stop at 4, and we are a little bit past, but I do want to leave some more time for discussion and, you know, what the next steps are going to be. So in terms of the co-op, you know, we obviously have some landowners here, and, you know, this thing's going to move forward, and we're going to try to aggregate some more people together. So, you know, some last questions for Anna in terms of how to get this thing going. I know her question always back to you is, well, what do you want? You know, so let's talk about that for just a couple minutes, at least the Robs Creek Cooperative people, and maybe even people that are considering being a part of it. Just because you're not contiguous to their property or their neighbors doesn't mean you can't be part of the co-op. I think you made that point pretty clear, that just because there's some separation, it all works. So I'm not trying to run it, but, you know, for Mike, I don't know if you want to come up and talk a little bit, or, you know, figure out what the next step is, or maybe you have a suggestion if they're kind of, you know, wondering what that step is, if, you know, there needs to be a champion, you know, what you see. So when you have a group, a co-op starting, and you got 4 landowners together, maybe some of them are saying, well, I want to do this, but I don't have time, or I'm not up here enough. You know, I know, you know, like, John's up here, Todd, you know, Todd's up here, Clay, you're up here, Mike, you're not up here all the time, Dan, you're obviously up here. What would be your recommendation to take that next big step forward?
Yeah. Well, Mike, how many people do you have helping with the co-op right now? Who's all kind of involved in a leadership role?
Me.
You. So,
me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
yeah, he needs help. Like, that's one thing that co-ops are going to struggle, and they're going to be a challenge if there's just one person, because it takes a lot of time to build relationships and to connect. So I'd challenge a couple of you guys to, or I can move over here.
Thank you.
I would challenge some of you guys to find out how you can help Mike, and figuring out kind of what your goals are and what you guys want to see. We all have slightly different nuances of goals, but there's similarities to them. So finding out where those similarities are, and that's what you promote to try to get more involvement as well. I think for you guys, one of your big struggles, there's a lot of people that don't live here who are part of the influence of what happens with your deer, right? So what are some creative ways that you can kind of get some contact with them? Maybe it's having a dinner together November 4th or the 16th, or maybe the 14th, night before gun opener. It's when a lot of people are thinking about deer. You know, not everyone's thinking about it the 2nd of September. But what are some times where there's more people here where you could grab their attention, motivate them with a chili dinner or something? Maybe it's free beer. Don't get too crazy, right? But
Well, that's how we kind of kicked it off. John and I put on a get-together June, July-ish.
Yeah, something like that.
Twice, 2 years in a row. Clay had us over, was that last year or year before last? I can't remember. And then Don Maxwell from Indian Creek had us over the day before opener 2 years ago. But I mean, really, it's been mainly Clay and I interacting back and forth on Facebook. Some of our members and Don's camp. That's really been about it, because we run the Facebook group.
yep.
And it's a open group people can see, but nobody can post unless you're a member. So we
Okay.
kind of kept it under control that way. You know, my biggest question is, you know, where do we go from here? I mean, we've got a name, we've got a Facebook page, but that doesn't make us a true, I mean, what do we need to do, to be a co-op? I know we've kind of given you information,
Yeah.
but a co-op's just a gathering of people. It doesn't have to be anything official.
No, it doesn't.
When I hear co-op, I think board members
Yeah,
You know,
I don't want to get
membership,
into that. We just want
meetings,
people to work together,
you know.
and to share
And
ideas.
it's going to be making sure that you're getting FaceTime with the hunters in the area. So it might be adding in a November meeting.
Okay.
Mike across the creek, Mark Straley last year, I don't know if you know Mark or not, Clay does. He had a big roast, and I gave a presentation, there was about 70 guys. And he'd been trying to start a co-op and call it the Fruity Ranch Road.
Okay.
So it might be
And who is that again now?
Mark Straley from Scott Engineering in Alpena.
But he's on the east side
On the creek.
of the creek. And how far over is he?
He's right on the creek.
Okay, does he abut Hastings?
Is that Little Wolf? He probably does.
Is that Little Wolf?
He does.
He does.
Little Wolf?
And he's been struggling too, and I don't know if it would be feasible and the two of these combined, because Mark is really, you've talked to Mark before. And he's been struggling too.
And you guys can combine for events, but then keep like your management goals and data collection to your little area. But partner and share some of the burden of events and getting speakers and that kind of stuff.
What about how big of an area? You know, we've got roughly 3,000 acres.
Yeah. And it's very contiguous.
How big? I mean, do you want
So
a plat page, or should it be half a page? I mean,
Yeah.
what's ideal?
So remember, the more you add, the more people you're managing.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that into account. Given that property sizes are much larger, I would say a larger goal would be good. Typically, so you start looking at a deer's range is typical range is about a mile. They're going to go outside of that. They're going to cross property lines. There's definitely the seasonal activity of movement and young bucks dispersing in the spring. But think about where your biggest impact is going to be and let it naturally grow from there. So continue targeting your core area. I would expand it out a little further to see what you can do. But organically, it should start growing on its own. But there's things like doing the mailings. You can contact your post office and you can get discounts for doing an entire route versus paying for individual stamping. There's some of that old school stuff. It gets hard again with the non-residents because they could be anywhere and that's hard. You can't do a route mailing like that.
Right. We found that out when we started the telephone co-op, that nobody lives around here.
Right.
You know, Clay lives in Alpena and this fella here lives up in Lachine.
Yep.
But I mean, right here, it's really hard to track people down.
So your biggest thing might be as simple as some big sandwich boards that say deer meeting this way, 6 o'clock on Thursday. Or
So-
whatever it might be.
And do you, knowing in your experience and knowing the uniqueness of this entity being involved, I mean, do you see any benefit to that, or us being more involved in the administrative of the movement, things like that? Seeing that we already have a lot of, you know, I guess
Visibility.
channels out to these
Yeah.
people, things like that.
Yeah.
Whereas
but
other areas might not have that.
I think that's super valuable,
'Cause I don't see
especially for
Frontiers
the younger guys.
endorsing your co-ops. So.
No, no. It's also important though to take into account the age demographics of the people who are involved too. So it's great for the younger group, you know, people who are utilizing media and engaging with that. For the older guys, you're gonna need the sandwich board is gonna be your best bet right there.
One thing about that picture that you guys might not notice, right above where it says Samsung, if you look at underneath where it says Samsung on the frame of the TV,
Oh,
and you
that.
go straight up, Ron, stand up and point to that, where right there is our cage, where it's all, you can see where that's
Normal growth.
that's where the normal growth is, and you can see how much that's been browsed, and what was planted there was turnips and rapeseed. And if you go to that cage and you look at how nice and thick and green that is, and you see how many deer have, and there's about 80 acres on this parcel right here, and that plot there is just maybe a little over 2 acres, maybe an acre point something or other. Okay, wouldn't you say that food plot, Dan, is about an acre, or a little over an acre?
Which one is that?
That's the one back on the east side of this property.
Yeah, you're acre and a half probably.
Acre and a half, and you can see in an acre and a half, and that's been soil sampled, it's been tested, all that's been done,
And we've had good rain.
and we've had excellent rain this year. We should have been able to grow rice out there as much rain as we've had. But that's what we're left with now is just weeds, grass, and you can see how much the deer have browsed it, and there's that caged in area. So we know on this particular parcel, we don't have enough food plots. They just, and last year on this parcel, they shot 7 does on less than 80 acres, 7 does were shot here, okay? Didn't even put a den in it. And no bucks allowed to be shot, none, okay? Just does. So this year, 14 does.
That's a good example with observation cave. Most people don't do that.
Mhm.
No.
Cause they just say, I can't grow anything.
Yeah, they don't realize it's all getting mowed
They don't
down.
realize that it's getting chewed off.
On our property today, Mike lives down near Fenton, he works for Channel 12 News, the TV station down there. Today I took Mike on our property and I showed him where Dan had planted crops in July. And honestly, we had crops that were almost knee-high. Outside of the cage, they're mowed right down.
Yep.
Okay, there's almost nothing left. Almost nothing left. And you realize how many food plots we've got. We've got a lot of land.
This is only September 1st, we got all the way to next spring.
The other thing to look at is the browse line. See how you can see all the way through the bottom there?
Right.
Pew!
Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
We call that deer desert.
Yep.
That's the way, what a
And
lot
that
of our
to
place
me-
is
That
just
to me
like
is
that.
way more concerning than a food plot not growing.
Mhm.
Because that's years of
No,
food
they
that's
grow.
not there.
Yeah.
How long did you get those sound effects? That was a really good sound effect. That was a good one. I like that. We need to incorporate that into your presentation.
Well, it would just stream live on Facebook. So.
There you go.
Oh,
We're gonna
You're
start
in.
something.
You're in now.
There we're in.
Alright, sound effects are me.
Okay.
So any other questions for Anna, or I mean, it looks like we're gonna have, Mike will talk more about.
Yeah, I just contact names if you're interested. Give me an email, give me a phone number.
do you have that? Can you get it off the list that we?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
If he's
That's why we have the list.
If you've got a Facebook account, reach out to me that way. We'll put you on the co-op page if you want to participate. I work in the outdoor industry. I put a lot of QDMA articles on that page. A lot of stuff from Osceola Gamekeepers. A lot of information goes out on our co-op page.
You know, tell them about Up North Journal too.
Yeah, I do a weekly radio show online, upnorthjournal.com.
And we're here available to help you. So,
Yeah, and
I live here, so.
oh, you right here in the area? Okay.
So
Well, I belong to the Northeast chapter. That's where I belong to. So.
Funny thing happened this morning, right before we started, before people got here, and this is what I talk about All-Band being a facilitator. Is we got a gentleman call. He ended up talking to you because I was busy, but we had a gentleman call our ACE WR phone number, and it was somebody saying that I think I have oak wilt in my front yard. What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
So right there. I mean,
Well, I mean, we can talk all we want about overpopulation and all the stuff going on. That is a clear present danger.
Yeah.
It's the oak
Oak
wilt.
wilt and
And it's-
rosebud, both.
The rosebud too, but attacking all the oak trees and them being like
Gone.
within the next
Mhm.
20 or 30 years, all these mature oak trees that are around here are going to be
There might be around.
gone.
So,
So
yeah, there's a lot to it.
If you go south of here on 65, and you just cross over McCullough Lake Road,
Yep.
on the east side, you can see where they went through and they
West
managed,
Oaks.
Okay.
to be on the east side. On the east side of
Okay.
65.
Yeah.
And they went through and they managed, they did a big cutting back in there, and then they replanted 500 white oak
is
trees.
that what you
Oh,
did there?
is that what they
That's
put
the
in there?
old
Yep, and go take a look at that, and see how nice a job they did of logging, and then they planted those trees, and see, that's good for this area, to plant more oaks, and they only planted white. They planted white oaks because it's less susceptible to disease.
Corner.
It's the red that gets the hardest. Gets the hardest,
Well,
right?
the red, the black, the pintail, there's a whole species
Is
that
he not
are
on it? He's just the landowner?
common to the area
Here?
that you don't know until you figure it out.
Right.
But there's like
Oh, this guy? Yeah, they hunt.
25 or 30 some lower class species, and they're more susceptible than the red oaks.
Anna, do you have contacts where we can buy white oak trees?
Your conservation district sells trees.
Yeah.
They sell
But they
puny ones.
more pine trees.
And it is better to get them at like 4 or 5 years old and plant from there. So is there a local nursery around or?
Here?
No.
Right.
No, we didn't have phones 10 years ago.
And he's right about that.
Netta, in Poston,
Yeah.
she will definitely provide you with oaks.
Well, the one I was
There's
on
also
last year.
money
I haven't
available.
Maybe we can start a little
One time.
synergy with her. or
With my
something.
eyes, but I had my
Forest,
truck in.
AC, or
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
we
don't know what
tried
happened
them,
to
but
him.
their stuff is all so small.
But I mean, I got a grant this year
See,
for all my food plots and my apple trees and my white oak and everything, crab apple trees through the soil conservation.
Well, listen, I'm gonna wrap up the feed, and you know, so any other questions for Anna, because she does have to get going, she's got to drive back downstate. I appreciate her coming. We're gonna post all the people that were here. You know, we're gonna post the contact information. I know not everybody on the feed could see the board, so we're gonna post all the information. We have 2 contacts we've made, both with MSU Extension DNR for Oakwood identification. Our forest conservation guy, the gentleman that were out on the video on our page when we did the Oakwood identification exercise. So we'll get everything posted. So, you know, everyone here, feel free to stick around and talk. That's fine. Do you have anything else to add? Or?
Just I would really encourage you guys to have some sort of event right around hunting season.
Okay.
See how that goes.
So I'm envisioning at least by next hunting season, that our HWR will have some sort of annual banquet. As we grow, and we can continue to bring everybody together and try to get the right message out and show them, success, And
One thing that really unlocked our co-op is that we have everybody that belongs down there is almost from out of state, almost 100%. And they come thousands of miles to hunt there.
You mean in your Missouri?
In Missouri, yeah. And one of the things that really bonded us together is that we have a contact list that if you need anything done, this is who you get things done. Like one guy says, I have no idea how many sheep that he does. Well, we just contacted the Amish people down in, there's a huge community just south of where we hunt. And they came up and they harvested the does and they did it just the way we wanted it. Okay. And then they also do a lot of, we found people to plant trees for us and do the habitat stuff for us. And it's just, we made the resources available, but we don't have an Albany. If you go down there, you don't even get a bar on your phone. It's just like, really, nothing whatsoever. So what is really cool about this for Albany is that where we're located, we can facilitate all that information. Because if someone says, well, where do we get oak wilt? Contact Albany. They can help you take care of the oak wilt, the spruce bud, the soil testing. We would love to do deer necropsies here. We would love to build a facility. If we get this co-op up and going good, we'll build a facility where we can refrigerate the deer, have the scientists, the biologists, the state people, invite them in. Say, come here.
Because the state doesn't do anything.
yeah,
Well, if we invited the universities, the central Michigans, the western Michigans, the Michigan states, the Michigans, the Wayne states, I'm sure you'd get students in.
But Dr. Crowe was looking for someplace outside of Turtle Lake to show this same physique and herd health in another area versus Turtle Lake. Turtle Lake, you got over 10 years of that.
And I see a
You
lot of.
want to go outside of Turtle Lake so you can compare, show the 2 differences. He's been looking for.
Well, this co-op would be a good place to do that.
Yeah, because and if people are calling their does and they want to deal with the the field dressing and they can bring them here, have the crop seed, we can find a way to donate the meat, process it, whatever we need to do.
Then the Beaver Lake Club brought them into Turtle Lake. Oakland Club brought them in. So they've had someone surround the area to bring in.
Sounds like maybe next February we need to do another new crop seed location.
Yeah, remember, Albany, when you're talking to other co-ops, if you ever run into a situation where you think we could put a tower up, install cameras, monitor deer, wildlife, any problems whatsoever, we can do that now.
Yeah.
We've got access to put towers up. What do they call those things again? The portable ones that you just set up?
They call them goats, but
Goats?
so if you go to like a U of M football game,
Couldn't you come up with something better than a goat?
hey, look, I don't know why they call them goats, but when let's say you go to a U of M football game, you got 120,000 capacity now or something.
Yeah, right.
The normal infrastructure for the cell phone industry cannot handle that much demand, so they bring in these portable towers. They pop up to accommodate the demand. Well, we can do the same thing by going out to a zone. Let's say we have a chronic wasting disease zone. You don't necessarily want that tower there forever. Maybe, I don't know, what's a normal study, a couple of years maybe? Well, we could do erect a tower that we can bring down and up, do wireless point-to-point, run a temporary fiber feed. Not only would you have the access for the researchers, but you would be able to have a cloud monitoring system for that process. And that's the DNR is actually very interested in that right now. So.
In Meridian Township, where you guys are down there with the CWB, there's fiber all over that because of Merritt. Merits, if you look at the merit maps, because they have the University of Michigan, they have the state of Michigan, they have all that, so it'd be easy for us to do. And then you can use this research to come forward and make it a better place. That's the whole idea. When we did that deer management study years ago, before there was telephone service in this area, before there was a real scare of tuberculosis, we came in and we collared all those deer. And we had all that information, and we proved without a shadow of any doubt that supplemental feeding did not affect the transmission of tuberculosis. We had people physically sit in it. Get the study, or I'll give you a study. I think I've got a digital copy. Did I give you, Mike, a digital copy of that study?
I don't remember.
Of Mark Gardner's? Anyways.
I think so.
And we had people physically sit in blinds. We had students sit in blinds. And when the feeder went off, it would distribute the feed, pellets, that kind of stuff, and corn. And then we would show how each minute where the deer were located. Okay, they'd say there's 6 does and 3 bucks at this feeder. And this is how they moved around. And they moved just like they moved through an alfalfa field. They always maintained a certain amount of distance. And then the thing is that once they ate that piece of pellet or that corn or whatever it may be, and we would go out and we'd sample for tuberculosis, and there was none. Okay, it's only like on a sugar beet or on a piece of corn, on a carrot or something like that, it has the possibility of leaving it. But once it gets exposed to ultraviolet light, the life of the virus is almost gone. So it's very tricky. And so people, they had this direct correlation in their mind that supplemental feeding caused tuberculosis, and they stuck with it. And they said it so many times without any factual data that they believed the own lie that they told. They told that lie for so long. Well, supplemental feeding causes tuberculosis. There was no proof. And then we ran a study that was contrary to that. And we said that's not the problem. The problem is when you quit feeding a deer in an area like this and they migrate into an area that has farms. You know, we used to feed 300-400 deer in our club in the wintertime. That was nothing. 300 deer, that was a drop in the bucket.
But that goes back to the
70s,
yeah.
70s and 80s, and then we used to shoot.
But it also
those.
goes back to the general.
But the deer would
overall
migrate
population of the whole area.
They would migrate into our camp. We would do a deer track survey west of 65, and there was very few deer. The deer would migrate from west of 65 into our club, and then in the springtime they would go back. That's what would happen. And so we studied that. We had, and I can provide that to you. And see, back then we wanted to start a cooperative. We wanted to get the hunt clubs to work together to manage their woodlots, to plant the food plots. I don't want Birch Creek to have the only food plots in Alcona County. I want everybody to have food plots. The problem is that this ground is really hard to farm. It doesn't have much organic matter, and it doesn't hold nutrients for very long at all.
Do I need Dan?
That's why you need Dan. Just call Dan.
Take the pressure off.
Dan's gonna get all these calls now.
Dan's worn out.
Well, we got to wrap up. Dan's
Thank
got to
you.
get going.
Thank you.
Feel free to stick around, take food, beverages. I appreciate everybody coming, and we look forward to doing this again, maybe even on a much bigger scale.
I hope